Hello, everybody, and welcome to ZTV Live. Today is Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. Tonight, we have Ralph Peluso with Reading, Writing, and Ralph. And Ralph's guest is Sandra Perez Gluschankoff. And she'll be here to talk about the 3 books that she's written. So we'll get to Ralph and Sandra in just a minute. But first, we want to give you just a couple of words from our wonderful sponsors. This episode of ZTV Live is brought to you by the Alexandria Pastry Shop with fresh corporate catering. Located in the Bradley Shopping Center on King Street, the Alexandria Pastry Shop has been creating irresistible pastries since 1988. They also season, grill, and saute the best receptions and dinners in the metro area. And they offer gluten-free, sugar-free, and allergy-sensitive specialties. Visit alexandriapastry.com. And by Cafe 44, a stylish American eatery situated along the waterfront in North Old Town, Alexandria. Enjoy beautiful views of the Potomac River while dining on seasonal, fresh, and delicious salads, seafood, flatbreads, and more. They also offer curbside cocktails and a full menu via contactless curbside pickup or delivery. Visit cafe44.com. And by Riverbend Bistro on Fort Hunt Road in the Holland Hall Shopping Center in Alexandria. Riverbend has carry-out as well as indoor and outdoor seating, and they offer an array of local comfort foods, enticing entrees, refreshing salads, and daily specials. Visit riverbendbistro.com. If you'd like to become a sponsor or place an ad with ZTV Live, please let us know and send us an email at ads@thezebrapress.com. That's ads@thezebrapress.com. Okay, well, we're back. Let me bring on Ralph Peluso, the host of Reading, Writing, and Ralph. Hey, Ralph.
Hi, Susan. How are you today?
I'm doing just great today. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. There's no thunderstorms.
No thunderstorms, so.
No thunderstorms.
Hopefully we don't lose any power. Yeah.
No, I hope not. And we have a wonderful guest tonight. She's an award-winning author with Solstice Publishing. And she's written several wonderful novels, 2 of which I've already read. And I know she's working on her 5th. So
wow. Okay.
She's very prolific, and her novels are definitely page turners, and they keep your interest from the start to the end. And I'd like to let's bring on Sandra Perez Gluschankoff.
And she's
Hi,
right
Sandra.
here. Hi, Sandra. Welcome.
Hello. Well, with that introduction, Ralph, I really want to read my books now.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to let you 2 take it from here.
Thanks, Susan.
We want the viewers. We've got some great viewers. They're interactive, they're engaged, and we try to entertain them and also open their eyes to looking at books in different ways. And so they're very knowledgeable, and so we've got our work cut out for us to keep them engaged. So anyway, tell the audience about yourself. They want to hear about you, your background, your awards that you've won.
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Argentina, and I immigrated to the U.S. Now it's a little over 29 years ago. I came here almost in my mid-20s, so that makes me about 25 years old, as you can see. And yeah, I came here with not much English. In Argentina, we speak only Spanish, and so the language was one thing to conquer. I like to talk, so I had to. I had to learn how to communicate. My background in my education is in psychoanalysis and Hebrew language and Judaic studies, and so that was me way back in Argentina. And here, throughout the years, I had to kind of reinvent myself. Like I said, learning the language, got married here. I have 2 wonderful sons, now adult sons.
Wow.
Yes, I'm a proud mama of those 2 beautiful boys. And in about, by the way, I never wrote anything other than university papers back in my country. And about, I would say 14 years ago, or a little more, maybe 16, I woke up one morning and I just had this crazy story in my head that I could see like in scenes. And I had the name of the characters, and they were like telling me this story. And I remember coming down the stairs. Of course, my husband, he's wonderful. He was waiting for me with a cup of coffee because I have to drink coffee first thing. And as I was drinking my first cup of coffee, I said, I'm becoming a writer. I'm going to become a writer.
Wow.
He looked at me and looked at the kids, and he said, okay, we'll all go, because it wasn't just a writer. I said, I'm going to write a movie. I didn't know the first thing about writing a movie, writing or speaking the language correctly. I'm still doing the Spanglish thing. And so, yeah. And so he looked at the kids, and he knows better than to, contradict me. And he says, okay, here, everybody in the car, we're going to go get mommy, a screenwriter software. And, the next day I had my desk, my computer, the screenwriter software. And that's how I started. I started learning how to screenwrite, attending conferences, writing screenplays, placing, to my surprise, placing in big competitions. And of course, the entertainment industry did not take off for me until years later. And I was frustrated because the very first story, which was The Last Fernandez, I don't know if you can see it.
I can see it.
It was that story that I woke up with in my head that morning. I never actually wrote it. I just put it down on paper, and I moved on writing other things. And talking to my dad one day, he goes, well, you should write a book. And I go, no, papi. I call him papi, we speak Spanish. You're crazy. I can't write a book. I'm not an author. I don't know. He says, no, you should write a book. And the next thing I know, we're moving to Santa Barbara from San Diego, where we were before. And again, my sweet husband, he has my whole setup, looking at nature, gorgeous. We were living in the middle of a farm. And I started writing my first novel, which is The Last Fernandez. And I just couldn't believe it when the novel got picked up for publication. And that was the beginning of me becoming an author.
Yeah. So you made the successful transition from screenwriter to author.
Yes.
And then your writing changes at that point. So you go from a work of the heart, of passion. So how do you get from there to Francesca's Box?
So what happens to me, and probably happens to you too, Ralph. Ralph, you are a gifted author. I read your novel, and it was wonderful, by the way. And what happens to me is, while I'm writing a novel and I already know how it's all going to develop, because you're in the process, I already have another story pushing its way in. And so it's like I have to tell the story. No. Wait a second. We're not done. Your turn is coming up. And so it always starts with some kind of family dynamic for me. That's how stories develop. And then they find the voice of the main character. In the case of The Last Fernandez, it was Angelina and Sarah. In the case of Francisca's Box, it was Francisca and Sophia. And so that's, little by little, then like a like a domino, things start falling into the right places. Everything falls into its right slot, and you see the story. And I've heard this from many authors that write fiction. It's like, you inhabit that space with your characters. You are just a transcriber, and you hear your characters telling you what and how and when. So that's basically how I can tell how the story happens. It's crazy, I know. I will be committed to a psychiatric hospital soon after the show.
Do you think some of the way you go about building your characters comes from your psychology background?
I can see the way people interact, and the complicated family relationships that we see in each one of my books, because they're twisted. And I know that everybody loves to, or they're twisted. You don't know. I mean, my family, it's weird. They love them, but we have everything there. Anyway, Mommy, Papi, I know you're watching. Mwah, I love you. But who doesn't love a more dysfunctional family than their own, right? So, yes, I think that my background has a lot to do with it, because I delve a lot into the relationship and what's left unsaid, and I build a lot and build a lot upon it. So yes.
Yeah, I mean this, before I get on to we get on to Thorns for Raisel, how did you feel when you won your awards? And you've won several, right?
Yes. Well, Francisca's Box is a double. Well, no, it actually won one award, and it was finalist in a big competition. So I won one award and was finalist in a big competition. The Las Fernandez won, the gold seal, the first prize. How do you feel? I just couldn't believe it. I mean, I was never a writer. I can't say I master the English language 100%, but when I am writing the stories, is that I'm not even here. So it really, it's just, it's like, it's a surprise. It's like I just couldn't believe it. If that's any indication of how I felt.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
The Thorns for Raisel, as you said so eloquently a few minutes ago, comes face to face with human interaction, human emotion, several themes ranging from revenge, hope, despair, love, forgiveness, reconciliation. But the backdrop of the story is about oppression against women,
Yes,
anti-Semitism, and human trafficking.
mm-hmm.
So how did you bring all of that together?
Yeah. The story of the Zvi Migdal, which is the historical. Each one of my books has a historical event that then the whole plot and characters revolve around. The story of Zvi Migdal is a story that is not widely known among the Jewish community. And of course, if it's not known inside of a community, it's definitely not known. It's not widely known. I remember talking to somebody I know really well, a man, a religious Jew, and I was telling him about the Zvi Migdal, which is the white slavery ring, the mafia that that shipped women from Georgia in Russia and Poland to South Africa, China, South America, and the United States under the pretense of getting them better jobs, getting them jobs, marrying them to Jewish, Polish men in each one of the countries, performing fake marriages back in their old country and bring them down to the Americas. And I remember talking to him about him, and he said, no, that's impossible. I cannot believe that a rabbi could do that. I cannot believe that a matchmaker, because matchmakers were in it too. They would target families, which were a lot because of the anti-Jewish laws in Poland. Talking about Raisel specifically, Jewish families were pushed out of the cities and into rural areas, which were called the shtetls, and they had to just leave the cities with whatever they had, they could carry with them. So by the time they settled into these in the rural areas, they were destitute of absolutely everything. So they would target these particular families with young girls, and they would perform the negotiations. I would say that some of the families knew what was happening, but most of the families didn't. Yeah. So when I met Raisel, I saw her journey. I understood what happened, but it just didn't end there. Raisel had to show us that this is still happening now. And that's why you have the parallel stories, the one in the present, and her telling her story of what happened 70 years ago. And of course, there's a revenge, there's a journey to learning, to acceptance, forgiveness, and a chance at a do-over. And in all my stories, I go through that journey with my characters because I truly believe that we all have to have that gift of learning and have a second chance.
Yeah, and I think there's one other very serious element of all of that. In those families, and I think we have a picture of an immigrant Jewish family with several children around the parents. It's unimaginable to me that the ones who knew would commit that sort of betrayal on a child. And that part of that comes across in your book as well, because Raisel was betrayed several times.
She was betrayed by her father. She was betrayed by her best friend, or who she thought it was her best friend. We're not going to give it away, are we, Ralph?
No, don't give it away. Yeah.
No. And she had to learn. I mean, she had to learn. She lost all faith in humanity because she was stripped of her own humanity. And you see the characters interacting with her, putting her through this torturous path, how they're also stripping themselves of their humanity to become these monsters. Yeah. So what happened, for example, back in Argentina, is that the community knew what was happening, but the Polish community, the one that was making all this money, we need to understand that the swimming doll ran from the mid-1850s to 1930 when it was disbanded, but it was actually working all throughout after the end of the Second War. Even though the Jewish community knew what was happening, these women were shamed. Yes. These women were not accepted within, they were not helped. No one just reached out and said, no, this needs to stop. What they did is that they pushed the men of the Zvi Migdal, they pushed these people out of the community, but they were so rich that they were able to buy themselves back into the community by building the bigger and the best temples and cemeteries, and bringing the Yiddish theater into Buenos Aires. For the Polish community was starved for a part of the culture that they left back in their countries. So money talks, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Money talks.
And I think in the book you talk about it, that they took so much, even their dignity at death, because they got pushed to basically cemeteries for prostitutes.
Yes.
And they are often hidden away and not in plain sight, and you have to go hunt for them if you try to find them. And I think we have a couple of pictures of those as well.
The cemetery. So, yeah.
And it's very sad, and so it's a terrific story built around a very tough topic. And the thing that makes it even tougher, and again, people shouldn't ignore it, it still goes on today. It goes on in countries that you wouldn't even think about that it goes on in. They're usually a little bit behind on the times. One of the ones where it's a huge problem, for example, is Nepal. And it's hard to imagine ripping some of those Sherpa and other indignant tribe girls away from their parents and shipping them to bases where they've got their human dignities completely stripped from them. So the other thing, I know it's still happening. That's a problem.
And it happens here. It happens at your nearest high school. And you have to learn how to recognize the signs. And it happens, I mean, young girls who are involved in gangs, the way that they service the gangs is by being used as a bargaining chip. There is sex trafficking within the gangs. It happens under our nose.
Wow, and it's
noses,
and it's not well talked about in the media or reported on, even in our country. You're right. The other thing that's fascinating about Thorns for Raisel are the relationships, and there are several. So Veronica and Sam, talk about their relationship a little bit.
Veronica and Sam, I guess it's let me think about it. They come together in a moment that they both need saving, right? She needs saving from this situation that she's been drawn into, because all of a sudden all hell breaks loose and she is targeted as the one that needs to solve this riddle. And then he needs to be saved from himself, and he sees a redemption with associating himself with Veronica. Of course, it develops into a personal and romantic relationship, but it's not a simple relationship. It's a painful relationship, because he also goes through all the stages. You can even see him in a parallel way as the same stages that Raisel goes through, because he's been through the side of sex slavery, of trying to fix it, and he couldn't. So you see this journey that mirrors, these characters.
That's a good point. And then, of course, you've got Charles and Andrea, or Andrea.
Yes, Charlie and Andrea.
So tell us about them.
Well, we all love in our lives. that we all have that one love in our lives. That doesn't mean that you have a relationship, but that doesn't mean that you stop loving that person. That person is part of who you were, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you who you are, and it teaches you to love in a different way. Andrea is Charlie's unfinished business. Andrea is Charlie's secret. It is his refuge. Andrea is what he keeps to himself, is the regret in his life, but Andrea is the connection to everything. Which, by the way, there's a short story that I wrote while I was writing Raisel, that is called Wednesdays with Maria, and that short story it's kind of a paranormal story, because we meet Andrea in the verge of life and death. Oh. So we're gonna see her like balancing, yes, or maybe, or balancing herself between the two worlds, and you get to understand her character a little bit more, and her relationship with Maria.
I look forward to reading more about her. And of course, we've got Raisel and Lifshitz.
Lifshitz, yes, her nemesis, and also it's a story of redemption. That is, when I was telling you before how they attempted to strip Raisel of her humanity, which they couldn't actually. Otherwise, she would have not been so resilient. I mean, she became resentful. She became combative, but she kept her core, right? She kept who she was, her essence. Now, when it comes to Lifshitz, he definitely stripped himself of everything that made him a man, because he just became obsessed with this woman and the idea of being power, a symbol of power. And he was way over his head. And he was way over his head from day one. He knew how to act, but he didn't know how to play the game. Right. And it cost him his life. It cost him what he loved the most. The one person that he thought was going to bring him back to life, he even lost that too. We're not going to say whom, but it's there in the book. Right. And then years later, when he comes face to face with Raisel, and he sees that Raisel is still intact, and she grew, and she moved on with her life with all her scars, he sees himself as this little thing, this little person that he needs to do something to be back into the land of the living. And that is when Lifshitz becomes, her ally, her ally in a way.
Yes. Yes. In a way. But anyway, it's a very intelligently done novel. Read and captivating. We're going to move on to the second part of our program, which I call the association game. And we do, as usual, we have 2 trivia questions for the audience tonight. So Sandras will provide 2 books signed to the winners. And the first trivia question has to do with the score of the music to the movie Memoirs of a Geisha. So John Williams passed on scoring for a box office Goliath franchise movie to do the score for Memoirs of a Geisha. So name the movie that John Williams passed on doing the score. So the first novel I thought of in reading yours, when it comes to human oppression, bondage and prostitution and things of that, of course, is William Somerset Maugham's great book of Human Bondage. A little bit different. Thoughts of Human Bondage. The ones for Raisel. Couple of sentences.
For me?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't read the book. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So let me start. So in Human Bondage, it's a story of strong emotional connection where Philip is obsessed with a woman who's rather flighty, eventually becomes a prostitute, and she is hooked into prostitution. And he loves her so much, he can't let go of her even after she shows up on his doorstep with a venereal disease, which she ultimately dies from. And she can never untangle herself from the lust for men, even when she was suffering. That kind of bond of emotion
I
saw in your book. Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally thank you. I'm sorry for not reading the book.
It's okay. We're gonna have some that you've read more on than I have.
Okay, so I can totally see that in Lifshitz' relationship with the woman that he becomes obsessed with, and a little bit also in Antonia's fascination with Raisel when he first sees her. Because we know that Antonio has been watching Raisel for a time before they actually meet. So it's this,
Yes.
They're two different kind of women and definitely two different kind of men. Nevertheless, two love stories. To each their own, they say, right? Whatever got Lifshitz going is his thing. But
Yeah, Antonio definitely, Lifshitz and Antonio both had that fierce love within them that Maugham portrays in his book.
right.
And it's very tough to let go. Very tough. The second book that came to mind, and I think this one you are familiar with, is Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. So
what we read, I mean, it's a fabulous book. But basically, what we read, it's like a look into the tailoring of a young girl into a geisha, which is no different from sex slavery. You take a young girl from a family and you place her into this academy per se, and from a young age, you teach her how to please a man, how to be subdued, how to become this object, so she can, she can become part of this elite. Now, it's no different than sex slavery. You are stripping this girl of everything that she could have been. She's a tool of pleasure. That's what she is, and she is stripped of her wants. She's a nobody. She is a made-up person.
you brought up a point when we were talking that Hollywood tends to romanticize stories that are really about female oppression.
Yes.
Yes.
There's another fabulous book, and that brings also, I mean, with S.B. McDowell, we talk about what happened on the Jewish end of it, which I thought I was going to be excommunicated, after after writing this book. Oh, well, whatever. And then we have Snowflower and the Secret Fan from Lisa C. It's a fabulous novel also. And it talks about the binding of feet of Chinese girls, also from a young age. They break the bones and they bind it. And so the feet become a sexual object for men. The smaller, the tighter the feet, the more value this girl has, and the more honor she will bring to the family, because she brings in a higher price, right? It's another way of sexual slavery. Now, when we see the harems, when we see the geishas, when we see, this beautiful Chinese women dressed in all their garb, we, what is shown to us is the romanticism of the culture, but we don't see the underlying, submission of this particular, of the women within the culture, of what they do, what they become. They're nothing but objects. We watch these romantic movies where women have a price. It's, the price, these historical pieces, the price of a bride, what they can bring into a marriage. So women have been associated with a price and with a certain thing that they need to do to please men.
Wow. It's amazing, and you're spot on with that answer. Susan, do we have a winner on the first trivia question yet?
We do have a winner, and it's Michelle Rogers, who guessed Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So congratulations, Michelle. I think we have your address.
I didn't.
She is on it. I have to admit.
She is.
She waits, and she's active. So let me give out the second question, because this one's a little bit more involved. So the movie version of the book of Human Bondage has been made 3 times. Name the 3 actresses who played Mildred Rogers and the 3 actors that played Philip Carey. So we're looking for 6 names. We're going to make them work for this one.
People are on Google right now, Ralph.
Yeah, of course they will, but that's okay. We don't mind. So let's get to the next book, which is a TV series on Hulu, I think. Again, where there's a little bit of romanticism put into oppression, and that's The Handmaid's Tale, where the women are basically subservients in their being groomed to be mothers, and it's completely bizarre. If I was in the shoes of a woman, how I would look at that. Your thoughts?
Well, any woman that is raped, to procreate, I mean, what else can I say? I did not watch the series, but I did read the novel. Yeah. It's brutal. What Margaret Atwood writes about in The Handmaid's Tale, it's brutal. It's, but it's possible.
You think, trying to think inside of Margaret Atwood's mind, do you think she wrote that about societal oppression of women and used it as a satire for that? Or did she write it maybe about that women get trapped inside of marriages through pregnancy and it was an escape for that? I mean, there's so many reasons she could have written that book.
Well, for many cultures, a woman that is barren is a useless woman.
Right.
For some extreme, when you are into the extreme of religions, a woman that cannot procreate can be pushed aside, and the man can actually, can divorce her and marry another woman who can give her sons, mostly sons, because daughters, again, they're a bargaining chip, right? When we are dealing with this extremist groups. So there's a literal part to it, um, and then I think also I think it shows a little bit of the lack of appreciation for women in society, and how, if we are if we, even today, right? If we are too outspoken, if we say things the way they are, if we act act out on things, we're crazy,
Yeah.
right? We are crazy. It's just ridiculous that we are in the 21st century and we're still labeled that way, even though, yes, women are elected prime ministers and, to Congress and Senate and so on and so forth. We have yet to have a woman president here, or vice president, whichever will come first. But we are still caged into that place of submission. You shouldn't be that person because you are a woman. It's
Wow.
changing, but it's taking time.
Takes time.
So the way that she, in the way that she writes about how women are used. And what is wonderful about the book is how, at the end, like for all of us women, we all come together to each other's aid, right? We support each other. We get to a point in our lives. I mean, once we pass high school, women actually are there for each other. We have each other's backs. And you see that in another wonderful book, which is called The Red Tent by Anita Diamante. Mm-hmm. And for any of us who have children, you see that in the famous Mommy and Me groups, where it's not about the babies. I mean, the babies can go take a nap. Yeah, totally. It's about us moms. It's about us women connecting, having each other's backs, creating our own little bubble. It's, girls' night out. That's what it is.
Yeah. The next book, I know you have familiarity with as well. It changes the target of the oppression from female to male. The Kite Runner. Thoughts about that?
Oh, that was, I mean, I read this book 1,000 years ago. Well, he didn't write it 1,000 years ago. He's such an amazing author, Khalil Hosseini. But oppression is everywhere. And I can't remember the word. That's when I start not processing words in any of the languages that I speak. But what happens to, this boy or these little boys in Afghanistan, it's just awful. And it still happens right now, is men in power use them as toys. They're their personal pleasure. They're their personal toys. And because they have a tribal position of power, it is allowed because it's part of the culture. Sex slavery is not only about women.
Yeah, and that's what comes across in that novel. Do we have a winner on the second question yet? Oh
my God.
Yeah, we'll give it a. Okay, fabulous. So we'll move on to the last book, which I think is very telling when it comes to oppression, and it changes the dynamic when you look at oppression from direct oppression or indirect oppression on how those in power employ it. And it's called The Neighbors. And it's a book written about, it's actually more of a documentary than it is a novel, about a small town in Poland, just about the time of World War II. that was evenly split between Christians and Jews, and the Germans came in to invade. And out of fear from what the Germans were going to do to the Jews, the Christians of the community murdered half the town. So the half the town that was Jewish got completely wiped out by friends and neighbors because of the pressure that they felt from the Germans. So the Germans themselves didn't carry out the massacre. It was carried out by friends and neighbors.
Interesting.
And when there was something in your book that connected me to the neighbors. The fear and the Darwinism protection that you get when your life's in danger. No one reached out to save Raisel. They'd rather save themselves, and they were more worried about if they knew where she was, they would turn her in rather than protect her.
Yeah.
Right. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, in the case of Raisel, it was back in her town. Her father just he just sold her because he, in his heart, I think that he thought he was saving her from the fate of what awaited them in Poland, being stripped of everything, that maybe she could have a better life, or at least taking her out of the shtetl, out of Poland, sending her away. Maybe trying to save himself from seeing what he was going to do with Raisel, or what he was going to do with her life. For him was why once Raisel was not around anymore, he didn't have to worry himself with life anymore. Raisel was his lifeline to this world, but he was already dead. He had lost so much. So by letting Raisel go, he was done. If he died that minute, that was it for him, for Toby, her father. Once she arrived first in Uruguay, and then in Argentina, Buenos Aires, it was all about money. Yeah. The Zvi owned everybody, empowered. They have their hands in every police department. And these Polacas, like Raisel, or like, the real life Raquel Lieberman, the one that actually disbanded the Zvi, a former slave, a former sex slave, also brought from Poland and fell into slavery twice believing that she was marrying this man. Instead, this man was her pimp, right. Two different men, until in 1930 she just broke free and told her whole story, and she was believed, and the whole thing was disbanded. It was all about money. It was all about power. I don't think it was so much fear. It was just greed.
Yeah, and self-preservation. Do we have a winner yet? Okay.
We do have a winner. It was close. It's going to Nancy Campbell Gorski. Congratulations, Nancy. Very good. She had all of the names correct, except she had not included one name. Another reader. We've had wonderful viewer participation, and thank you all so much for participating and answering the questions.
Congratulations.
You have a lot of fans out there, Sandra, and they're just really showing their love for you. So, but continue.
You're a wonderful writer. As I said, a very intelligent book, Thorns for Raisel. I'm going to read The Last Fernandez, and I don't know when. I've got through this wonderful opportunity of the ZTV Reading, Writing, and Ralph. I now have 15 books to review. That takes me out, I think, December of next year. And our next guest will be booked in February 2021.
Wow.
So we're getting quite a response, and it's been a lot of fun. And so thank you for coming on, and keep up the writing. And
thank you.
And it was very nice having you and meeting you and seeing you in person. I know I've spoken to you a few times, but seeing you.
I know. We connected before. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you for everything that came into the show to watch us. And you know where to find me.
Yes, Sandra,
Yes,
thank you. It was so nice to meet you. I do want to let you know there, Cher Star Wars, Brenda McCoy, Elizabeth Carner. Their reviews and their accolades for you are very compelling, and so I think I want to check out your books as well. So thank you so much.
She took on a tough topic and did it in a very gracious manner.
Thank you. Hey, why go the easy road?
That's right.
Absolutely. Go big or go home, right?
That's right. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
See you in 2 weeks.
Okay. Yep, Ralph. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Sandra, thank you so much. Great to meet you.
Thank you.
Okay. So that'll do it for tonight's episode of ZTV Live. Thank you, viewers, for your comments and for your love and your likes and letting us know you're out there. We really, honestly love to hear from you. And congratulations again to Nancy and Michelle on winning the books. Another wonderful interview from Ralph. Join us tomorrow night. Jane Collins, the executive director for Herd, will be here interviewing Allie Barbaro from Hunger Free Alexandria. So that should be a very interesting interview tomorrow night. She'll ask 10 questions, personal and professional, and we'll get to know Allie a little bit better. So until then, we will see you tomorrow night. And in the meantime, remember to be the good news in someone's life.